School Board section. Is invited to share their thoughts and comments with the board. Please complete the virtual meeting request form. In COVID safety guidelines. I would invite everyone to engage their mute buttons when they're not speaking and to remember to turn on the mics when we do speak. And if anyone wishes to ask a question or share a comment, please use the raise hand function on BoardBook Premier. I will track that. The requests appear in the order in which they are placed. I will also watch for a waved hand, but just want to acknowledge that the format of the screen that I view is just a little bit different this evening. So I want to make sure that I don't miss anyone who would like to speak. So raised hand is probably going to be the easiest thing for me to track. So at this time, I'd like to invite Board Member Andrea Keene to read the mission for 287.
The mission of Intermediate District 287 is to be the premier provider of innovative specialized services to ensure that each member district can meet the unique learning needs of its students.
Thank you, Andrea. And this time we'll have board member introductions. Crystal, if you would please ask each board member in alphabetical order to state their name and the district which they represent.
Adams.
Steve Adams from Hopkins.
And I am Crystal Brackey from Richfield Public Schools. Casey.
Ann Casey, proudly representing St. Louis Park Public Schools.
Keene.
Andrea Keene, Wayzata Public Schools.
I do not see Ruthie with us. Is that accurate?
I don't know for sure. I don't either. So
okay, I just wanted to make sure I was not missing her. Douglas.
Heather Douglas here for Osseo Area Schools, 287 or 279. Sorry.
Marty.
287.
Hello, everyone. I'm Heidi Marty with West Tonka Public Schools.
Neville.
Hi, I'm Regina Neville representing Edina Public Schools.
And Sant.
Sam Sant, Robbinsville 281.
Thank you very much.
I'm here.
Oh, hi, Ruthie.
Right,
Sorry, I
man.
missed you.
I had problems getting it on. I'm Ruthie Dallas with Brooklyn Center Community Schools.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. And I'd also like to introduce our staff members who are present this evening. We have Tanya Allen, Michelle Axel, Ann Becker, Melissa Bratting, Juanine Mgini, Sean Garvey, Radius Guess, May Hawkins, Kim Halverson, Superintendent Sandy Lewandowski, Ben McGrath, Chad Maxa, Elizabeth Lodge Rogers, and Jonathan Voss. Are there any staff members I have accidentally missed? All right, welcome everyone. Glad to have you here. We're going to walk through the agenda for this evening. We'll have our regular consent agenda. There is no Share the Success this evening. Item 6, the superintendent's report, includes an action item with a recommendation for an organizational chart review. We'll have presentations about a trauma responsive care program in District 287, presentation about our year of learning and my grandmother's hands, presentation about back to school progress, and exciting information about a federal grant award for District 287. There is no instructional report this evening. In our Business Services and Labor Relations report, I'd like to point out an added item, 8.1.1, which is a summary of summer projects presented by May Hawkins. We'll also have a financial report with COVID-19 grants overview. And that will be followed by a human resources report, which includes a closed session for labor negotiation discussions. which may take place according to Minnesota Statute 13D.03. And we'll close with board business, an AMSD report, and once around the table. Are there any additions to the agenda? Hearing none, I move that we accept the agenda. Is there a second?
Second, Heidi Marty.
Seconded by Sam Sant. Thank you. And I invite the board members to unmute their microphones in preparation for the roll call vote. Crystal, would you please call the roll for approval of the agenda?
Adams.
Aye.
Brackey is an aye. Casey.
Aye.
Keen.
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes.
Douglas.
Yes.
Marty.
Yes.
Neville.
Yes.
Sant.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Juanita, are there any audience members who have requested to address the board this evening?
No, we have none.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to approval of the consent agenda. Are there any items anyone would like removed from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
This is Andrea Keen. I so move.
Second,
Andrea.
Heather Douglas.
Moved by Andrea, seconded by Heather. And I invite board members to unmute their microphones for the roll call vote. And Crystal, would you please call the roll?
Adams.
Aye.
Brackey is an aye. Casey.
Aye.
Keen.
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes.
Douglas.
Yes.
Marty.
Yes.
Neville.
Yes.
Sant.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you all. We'll continue on the agenda with item 6, our superintendent's report. So I'd like to welcome Superintendent Lewandowski. We'll begin with an action item on a recommendation for adjustments to the organizational chart. So Sandy.
Yeah. So thank you, Madam Chair. I'm bringing you tonight another update on our organizational chart. As many of you remember, we've had several resignations, retirements, an assortment of things that have caused a number of changes in our organizational chart. And I wanted to bring to you kind of an update, if you will. I will ask for action on that, but it really boils down to a couple of things that we are recommending as changes to what you have seen in the past. The first is in conversation with Tanya Allen, we have determined, and she has agreed that she could handle the capacity of both family engagement and mental health. So we have merged that those two areas under her leadership. We have had an assistant director of mental health and partnerships, and we are moving that individual mutually to be a assistant director, but responsibilities kind of district-wide under Melissa Broading. So we will have her transfer to that set of responsibilities, and we will post for an assistant director of mental health and partnerships. And so that pending board approval, we'll go ahead with that. And Tanya will carry the overall leadership for those two areas. So that's the primary change in this format of the organizational chart. And I'd invite the board to ask any questions. And then if we can, we'll look for approval.
Thank you, Sandy. Are there any questions or comments regarding the organizational chart? I don't see any requests. So at this point, we'll move forward for action. Is there?
Oh, I'm
pardon me.
sorry, Madam Chair. Can I
Yes,
just add
absolutely.
one more thing, just
Yes.
as clarification? I'm sorry, I didn't
That's
think
okay.
of that during my earlier words, but we have left an empty director position on the chart. We don't intend to plan to fill it right now. There's a lot of reasons why we don't think this is the time to add a director position, another director position, but we do want to retain it on the chart. Because after hopefully COVID settles down and more things fall into place, we may bring that back for a recommendation. But for right now, that's an empty position, but retaining the position on the organizational chart.
Thank you. That is helpful background.
Yeah.
So I'll just do one more check to see if anyone has any comments or questions. So let's move forward for action. Is there a motion to approve the organizational chart as presented?
So moved. Heather Douglas.
Moved by Heather, thank you.
Second by Steve Adams.
Second by Steve Adams. Thank you. I invite the board to unmute their mics for the roll call vote. And Crystal, go ahead, please.
Adams.
Aye.
Brackey is an I. Casey.
Aye.
Keen.
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes.
Douglas.
Yes.
Marty.
Yes.
Neville.
Yes,
Sant.
Yes.
thank you. Motion carries. Our next item is item 6.2, trauma responsive care in District 287. This is an informational item. And I'd like to welcome Tanya Allen, our Director of Family and Community Engagement, to provide an overview of last year's training and implementation plans. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you. I'm just going to bring up a short presentation here. So I wanted to provide an update. Last year you had a presentation, so thank you, Madam Chair, on trauma responsive care and the work that we were doing with the neurosequential model in education. So this is just meant to be an update of what that journey looks like currently, to talk about our leadership development in trauma, the work we're going to be doing with professional development for staff, and what the implications are for the future. So as some of our board members know, back in June 2019, Dr. Bruce Perry and his team came to the district office. He did a keynote that did include some of our board members and other superintendents and others in the community that were a part of that keynote speaking. And then he also provided a 2-day training for 46 of our staff at that time in a variety of different roles and positions. And going from June 2019, our goal throughout this year was to work towards certification for those 46 members. In December 2019, our presentations began. We started a little bit later than we had initially planned. Unfortunately, one of his key members of his team, just was unable to get us started sooner. So we started in December. And then obviously in March of 2020, we had our coronavirus pause. We had to really shift kind of what our training plan was as a result of some of those things that we needed to do to take care of making sure we provide the services we needed to provide to students at that time. So in June and August, we met again for longer trainings to try to catch up for what we had missed. And then earlier this month, we finished our NME trainer presentations. Each small group from the sites all presented their information with the trainer, Steve Grainer. And we were able to make sure and go through all of that content. Certificates won't happen until everyone finishes all of the pieces of the certification. There are some videos and some other materials that people may not have finished, but once that is done, we anticipate that hopefully no later than late October or early November, we will have certificates for all of those individuals that went through the training. And so to remind people of kind of what is that training that we really focused on, for those that weren't on the board at that time, one of the things that you're seeing in front of you is a heuristic, as Dr. Perry refers to it, that just really talks about the brain and how our brains are organized and what that means and our brains are developed from the bottom up. So thinking about what's in our brainstem and how our body functions. And so thinking about those basic processes like temperature, heart rate, blood pressure, and then going all the way up to the top, our cortex, and thinking about that's where abstract and concrete thought is. And the thing that's so important, not to dig into details, but the big thing to remember is that obviously if we're in the lower part of our brain, it's going to be very difficult to then teach students and when you're needing to access things like abstract or concrete thought, if those things are not regulated. So our temperature is not regulated. If you've been sick, you know what it's like to have your temperature not be right and what that does to you, what that does to your heart rate, your blood pressure, your sleep, all of those functions, and that then impacts your ability to do everyday tasks. So that's kind of the gist in a nutshell. As far as our leadership development, one of the things that we did was took our big group of 46 and shrunk it to 20 participants of that group that represent what's called our trauma leadership team. And the work of this team is specifically to help to guide and support our implementation plan. So it's our hope that soon there will be a clear infographic that just details what specifics we'll be doing. We are in the process as a team of identifying what are our big 2 to 3 things this year, given that we're still obviously dealing with things related to the coronavirus, but what are our 2 or 3 big ideas that we want to make sure we share out to staff during this school year? And then district leaders, the district leaders that did not receive full NME training will receive an overview during the school year. So staff that were hired after this process began will be a part of that group that receives some of that leadership development training so that they know how to support their staff. As far as all of our staff, so when we think about professional development for any staff, our mental health team is a group of individuals that were part of the NME training group, and we will be working with them, and that's our social workers, our psychologists, our social emotional learning coordinators, and others to really help to work on offering some mini sessions throughout the school year. So things that are coming to the front as students are beginning to return to school, what are some of the things we're seeing, and what do we need to provide support to our staff around that? And then for all staff, we started this school year with a Trauma 101 training that was required for all staff as they came back into the district. And we did that intentionally because obviously we need to make sure that we're understanding of all of the things that have happened over the summer into this fall, obviously, so many things in our communities, and making sure that staff had a grounding about what is trauma and how do we address and how do we deal with trauma. We will be continuing to develop training throughout the school year because we want to make sure that we can provide staff with all the tools that they need to do their jobs. And so as far as our next steps, one of the things, and I know Radius is coming up next, is going to be our year of learning with Resma. So I'm not going to talk about that much because she's coming next. But the other part is just really working on creating as many different training opportunities as possible to support those key concepts of the neurosequential model in education throughout the school year. So we'll be working collaboratively with Dr. John Voss and his department in teaching and learning and working together on a professional development schedule that really helps to meet the needs of all the staff in our district. So I just wanted to leave time for any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Tanya. A great update. Are there any questions or comments? I don't see any at this time, but we may have some additional comments or questions that come up as we continue with the agenda. Thank you for the update. This really is extraordinary work, and having had the opportunity to listen to the presentation of Dr. Perry in June of 2019, I was excited. I learned a great deal, and I can just see how this is going to be beneficial for our students. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to welcome Dr. Elizabeth Lodge Rogers for item 6.4, an update on back to school progress.
I think we skipped videos.
Oh, I did. Sorry, and I see exactly what I did. Thank you. That mark went in the wrong place. All right, Radius, I apologize. We'll do 6.3 before 6.4, a year of learning with Resma Menakim's My Grandmother's Hands. Radius, welcome.
Thank you. Madam Chair Neville, I have a very short presentation that I would like to share with you, just a few slides, because I didn't think that I would do justice to the work that we're doing without a PowerPoint presentation. So here we go. This just kind of introduces to you the year of learning that we are doing with Justice Leadership Solutions. Does everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, because this is my first time sharing my screen without Juanine helping me. So here we go. So the year of learning is basically going to be a community of practice, and that's what we're trying to introduce to staff, a community of practice. It's all about co-creating an organizational wellness culture across 287. So in order to do that, it's going to require that we deepen and expand relationships. We are planning to expose staff to body-based practices, and then we will intentionally mobilize and settle our nervous systems. And we're doing this because we're having some really intense conversations around race. And so for many of us, the way we are having these kinds of conversations, it really does bring up some triggers in our body. And so Justice Leadership Solutions, which is Resma Minikim, he is showing us how to manage that trauma or that stress in our bodies. And so right now we had about 150 plus staff across the district representing a lot of different positions submit an application and express an interest to be a part of the Year of Learning. So we're in the process of onboarding about 100 staff. We began a first cohort and they started on September the 16th, which was last week, and they completed their onboarding on today. And then we'll start a second cohort and they'll start their onboarding on October the 22nd and complete their training on October the 28th. And once we've done the onboarding, a part of that is also about sharing and understanding and familiarizing ourselves with some new concepts. You know, as we have new concepts to describe the changing demographic realities. And so one of the new concepts that all of us are learning is called VIMBAs. And so VIMBAs is all about vibes and vibrations, images and thoughts, making meaning to the new concepts and the experiences that we're having in the room, our behavior and some urges that we might have to respond in a different way, recognizing affectively and some feelings that we might be experiencing, as well as sensations and sensate. So again, that's a new concept that we're all being exposed to through our Year of Learning. Other new concepts are life and invitational reps. And reps are basically just the ongoing opportunities that you have to experience what it might be like to walk in someone else's shoes. There's some grounding truths that we're all experiencing, and those are grounding and orientation, touch, and movement, and many more. So those are just some of the semantic terminology that are being introduced to staff through the training. Most of the work that we are doing is done in an affinity space. The space that we are using is done through triads or dyads, and you're in those spaces with people that represent a very familiar characteristic, physical characteristic as yours. It may be a gender characteristic or a race characteristic. And that's basically done to better understand and live into our specific and communal work as emerging justice leaders. That's the ultimate goal for the Year of Learning or Community of Practice, is to become a social justice leader. So there are BIPOC body and white body triads. We meet separately monthly, and we will meet together quarterly. So we're working on a schedule right now that will kind of communicate to staff what the Year of Learning will look like for the book study that we're going to do on My Grandmother's Hands. So right now we have the books, we're getting them into the hands of all of the staff. So we'll start right away in November, because by that time everyone will have gone through the onboarding, and we'll look at the table of contents through chapter 2, and that will be something that all bodies will do together. And then Resma will be breaking us up into bodies that are meeting separately. So the BIPOC bodies and the white bodies will meet separately for chapters 3 and 4 in December, and in January, chapters 5 and 6. Chapters 7 and 8 will all come together for a conversation, and then splitting off again in March and April, and then finishing our conversation coming together through a celebration, because we've completed the book study and we're ready to have a conversation about what the experience was like for the Year of Learning and building our capacity across the district. So the ultimate goal that we have set for building this community of practice through our Year of Learning and our social justice leaders is to support emerging social justice leaders in developing capacity to facilitate and sustain future communities of practice within and across District 287. So that this is something that we believe it's going to be ongoing. It's not just something that we're doing right now, but we're hoping that the staff that are participating in the Year of Learning will become facilitators of the Year of Learning going forward. This is an opportunity, we believe, for our board members, for each of you to also be a part of this process. Please submit an application, talk with, I hope she doesn't mind, Andrea Keene. She's also participating in the Year of Learning. So if you have questions about what her experience is like, please ask. I'm sure that she'll share with you what that experience has been like for her. So with that, I will close, and I will invite other colleagues around the table that have been a part of or just completed the onboarding to join me in responding to any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Radius. And Andrea's is the first hand raised. So I'm going to go ahead and, Andrea, could you please share what you experienced?
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you guys about this because I just have to say it's unlike anything I've ever experienced. Spending 4 hours with Resmaa and I think school board members, we tend to be somewhat like-minded and that we're very much thinkers and problem solvers, and we want to intellectualize and tackle problems. And this is not that. I'm guessing that for all of you, when you saw that slide talking about VIMBAs, if you're anything like me, you're kind of like, okay, all right, whatever, vibes. But I'm telling you, he spent at least an hour on that one slide. And I kind of feel like a changed person because of it. It's a different way of coming at this. And I am so excited. I feel like I might be transformed by it. I also feel like it's a great opportunity because it feels like the foundational work that we all need, but we just don't know we need because we don't understand what we don't know. And it's kind of like implicit bias on steroids. You just don't even understand what you don't know. So if anyone is wondering if they want to commit the time or if it would be right for them, I just could not recommend getting involved more highly. I'm super excited to see what happens next, and feel free to ask me any questions.
Thank you, Andrea. So I would invite additional questions or comments for Radius or for Andrea. Sam Sant, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you for the presentation, Ms. Guess. My question is regarding the timeline. Why is it, I guess, that employees of color and then white employees are separated into these, I guess, cohorts, discussing these chapters, and why not, I guess, together? What's the purpose of that, or what are you trying to gain by doing it that way?
I would like to invite my colleagues who are in the room that completed and participated in the training, who are white bodies, to respond to that question. I know that May is in the room. She was a part of the training. I know that Michelle was in the room. She was a part of the training. Melissa was in the room. Sandy was in the room. So I'm calling you out because, again, that was one of the things that Resmaa spent so much time talking about. More than me, as a person of color, needs to talk about the importance of this work and to be able to be in an affinity space to hold that conversation. It takes more than me to communicate that. So I'm inviting my colleagues to share their thoughts on what that means and help me to answer that question.
Sandy, you want to go ahead and start, please?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you, Radius. It became apparent within probably the first hour why you need to split out and come back together, because I think Andrea said it, we don't even know much of the implicit bias that we're carrying. And when groups would come back together and they were mixed with BIPOC staff and white staff, the conversations and the characterization of those conversations really illuminated that. What were the BIPOC bodies thinking of was quite different than the way I thought about the conversation. And just that alone, recognizing my view of the world is quite different than what their view of the world is. And I need to learn more about that viewpoint of the world and change some of my thinking, invite more listening. And really, I could see in that kind of separation that we can improve our skills, but we have to give space for our BIPOC staff as well to have their conversations about what race feels like to them in District 287 oftentimes, and how that can either cause conflict or how we can heal that conflict. And again, I think Andrea said it well, is how do we talk about race? We don't even understand. I didn't understand. I should isolate it to me. I didn't understand how much I don't know when I'm in a conversation, and I look forward to learning more. So hence the title, You're Learning.
Thank you. Are there additional comments? Ruthie Dallas, go ahead, please.
I have another question. I'll let the others go ahead and speak on this particular topic.
Oh, your question is not about this topic?
I want to ask Radius something, but you were asking comments from the others that were white. Right?
Is there anyone else who would like to share, to follow up Sandy's comment regarding the separate conversations?
So this is May. So I will follow up with some of the things that Resmaa introduced today. And that is about the fact that when we speak, that it is a somatic solicitation to others. So when you use words and you speak, you are actually impacting other people's bodies. And what we might not be aware of as white people sometimes is that what we're saying is tearing right through BIPOC citizens and people. So that is another reason why there are separate groups. So.
Thank you, May. Are there any additional comments by people who participated in the onboarding that they can share? So Ruthie, or go Jonathan, did you have a comment?
I was just going to add one other thought on that, is that often in mixed conversations, BIPOC bodies feel the need to ease the discomfort of white bodies. And so the purpose of separating is to more or less force the white bodies to confront what they need to without feeling like they need to be supported and comforted by others.
Thank you. And Melissa, did you also have a comment?
I did. Thank you very much of what John had just shared as well. Just that recognition of what I'm bringing into the space just by physically being there before I say anything, just by being in the room. It was an amazing experience, the 4 hours. I emailed Radius after and said I would have stayed for another 4, and I cannot think of any professional development, anything I've been a part of for 4 hours that I've wholeheartedly said more. I'd like to do that again. But absolutely for this, very much looking forward to it, and highly encourage anyone who's thinking about it. Please explore it. I'm happy to answer any questions if that would be helpful as well.
Thank you. And I do want to just make sure I don't miss anybody. And Ruthie, I'm not forgetting. I'm going to go to your question next. But is there anybody else who would like to follow up with the comment about the onboarding? Okay, and Ruthie, go ahead with your question for Radius.
I was just wondering from Radius or either Andrea, how much time do you anticipate this would take if you were involved in this project on a monthly basis?
Director Dallas, to answer your question, there is an 8-hour onboarding that would be required, and that's the grounding for the training. The date that we set for that is October the 22nd from 12 to 4 p.m. And then again on the 28th of October from 12 to 4 p.m. So that's an 8-hour onboarding that Resmaa requires for the year of learning. After that, there will be anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes once a month, we'll be coming together for the book study.
Okay.
And that will carry us from November all the way through May, once a month
Okay.
for 90 minutes.
Thank you.
That was the 12th, and what was the other date that you gave for the 8-hour?
The first session will be October the 22nd for 4 hours from 12 to 4.
Okay.
And the last session will be October the 28th from 12 to 4 p.m. And you have to attend both sessions, both 4-hour sessions.
And both are 12 to 4 p.m.
That is correct.
Okay. All right.
And I believe, I know Juanine has sent an invitation to the board, but we can reshare that application. And Sandy, did you have?
That's exactly
Oh, that
what I
was
was
it.
gonna say. Yeah,
Okay.
that was it.
I read your mind better when we're in the same room.
No, that's just fine. I just wanted to make sure they
Thank
get
you.
it again.
Yes, because I know getting to the top of the email box is helpful so that we have an opportunity to apply. Any other additional questions or comments for Radius? Thank you to everyone who has shared about their experience so far. This really does sound extraordinary. I've been reading the book. I'm not quite finished. I'm getting a lot from the book, and I can tell that I really I need to do the year of learning as well to get the most out of this process. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Radius. That's a really helpful update.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll now go on to item 6.4, back to school progress. Welcome, Dr. Elizabeth Lodge Rogers. Elizabeth, your mic might be muted. No? But there we go.
Okay, I apologize for that. I apparently am a slow learner. I keep having that problem. So now I hope that you can see a slide.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, because I cannot see you. So this is good. All right, thank you. Well, thank you so much. And good evening, Chair Neville. Sorry about the microphone. Members of the board and Superintendent Lewandowski, I am just delighted to be here this evening to give you a glimpse into what the beginning of the 2021 school year looks like. And we're going to focus on celebrations and then some challenges that have been brought forward. And with apologies to the Grateful Dead, I have had the privilege of working in education for 35 plus years. And no school year is ever the same. I mean, I think those of us that have been doing this work a long time recognize that. However, a strange trip indeed has been had as we've embarked on this school year. This one is particularly unique. Nevertheless, lots of celebrations, and yes, those challenges that we're facing and solving as we, meeting and solving as we go along. I think sometimes a word cloud provides a nice visual summary of the information that's been collated, and I gathered a lot, and this just gives us a nice perspective. As I gathered stories of celebration and stories around the challenges, front and center are our students, our focus, our work, the reason why we do this work. And right there with them are wonderful staff who are showing up and doing what needs to be done, right, to meet the needs of the students. They are here, they're front and center. And again, the other word that just kind of popped up was learning. And so indeed, we are in school, we've had bumps and we've had even some potholes, but learning isn't happening. Students are engaged, they're excited, they're connecting with those important teachers and other staff that work with them, our educational assistants, our support staff, and we're off. lots of good things happening. And so we'll start with that. Certainly, my colleague, Michelle Axel, uses this phrase a lot, all hands on deck. We're just all hands on deck. And wow, I think since March 13th, we've been all hands on deck pretty much consistently, sometimes 7 days a week. There is no doubt that we work in a wonderful district with an amazing team. And I am referencing leaders from all divisions, staff from all over the district, our families, and our students as we work together to start to put in place a plan that we now are executing in steps and working together. As we have spent time, particularly I think of our leaders in our buildings and programs, they have been in teaming meetings, IEP meetings, 500 plus in the last 3 weeks, all kinds of planning meetings with their leadership in the building, with their leadership teams among their staff, with our folks from facilities and food service, the IT, everyone. And there's just been a lot of collaboration, a lot of grace offered to each other as we've worked together to put this, to get this thing going here this year. And certainly when I think about our students and families and staff, I think of those strong relationships among our teachers, related service, the social workers, the school psychs, the assistant principals and program facilitators. And they have a strong relation with our families. Everyone trusts each other. They come together. They're working hard to figure out, well, how's this going to look for our student or your child this year when we're in this connected learning plus experience as we move into hybrid, and hopefully as we move into some kind of more consistent in-person, and knowing that we're going to be moving in and out. And we've just seen that collaborative spirit and that trust in each other and that creative thinking and problem solving to make things work. I was talking with our leader for care and treatment, and we have 2 brand new teachers to our district in one of our programs that is an odd situation because we have worked with one group of students, mostly referred to us from the county and we're transitioning. Those students will be going to a different location, and we are receiving new students. And those 2 brand new teachers to District 287 have worked together, have collaborated with their leadership team and with the agency that they're working with to put together and get the school year started just with amazing grace, enthusiasm, energy. And when we see them building those relationships with the students, we're pretty excited. I don't want to overlook.
The dancing.
I don't.
Are there additional slides, Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Oh, did it not advance?
Slides aren't advancing, Elizabeth. Just so you.
Oh, well.
It's the first one that's showing. Board members can follow along in their packets because the whole slide deck is present in the packet.
Can you see it now?
No. Yep.
Yes.
That worked.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, thanks for letting me know.
But the full slide deck is in the board packet, so we're able to.
Yeah, but okay. Thank you.
It's all good.
It's all good. Thank you. I don't want to, as I think about teamwork and collaboration, I just want to take a moment to give a shout out to our coaches, our instructional coaches that we have across the district who work under the leadership and in collaboration with Dr. John Voss and his team. the wonderful work they're doing. I think about how much collaboration has happened among Tanya Allen and her team as she's working with the SEL coordinators and the coaches. There just has been an incredible amount of collaboration with leaders to develop professional learning that has been implemented for a long time. Gosh, right? Way back to the beginning of August, earlier even, and continues ongoing. So that collaboration and our coaches have been a real asset in not only developing and creating and supporting professional learning across the district, but supporting our staff as well. The joy of seeing students begin to come into the building is contagious. And for those of you that may follow Assistant Principal Tara Belmore, you may have seen this tweet of hers on September 14th. You guys, I saw 2 students today. There were students in the building. It filled my heart to see them, to see how they've grown in 6 months, to see staff interact with them, and how everyone glowed. I can't wait to see some more tomorrow. Small wins, big impact. And since that time, certainly lots of connections have been happening in person, and staff are working with students in person, whether it's in the front yard of the house or in a park nearby, or coming into the school for an orientation and tour. But we are connecting both virtually and in person with our students. She mentioned to me a couple students that just came in this week, and they've been in, have not missed an appointment with their teacher. And these were 2 students that we really had lost track of, if you will. They had kind of disappeared, and we just could not get them to engage before COVID. And then during COVID, lots of energy and effort to try to get them to return and connect. And frankly, we're not successful. They're back at it, meeting with their teacher, and excited and energized to be in it. So those are the positive and exciting times that are happening. This is a schedule for a student, and he and his teacher prepared a presentation for his IEP meeting in which we were planning for that connected learning plan and the hybrid, and he presented much of it. But I thought the schedule itself would give you a glimpse into what it looks like for a student. And this is a student who will follow a block schedule, but will be interacting with his industrial arts teacher, will have advisory, will work on some advocacy skills. This is for a transition age student. We'll also be doing some math and working together. And what an exciting way to get to start your year out when your brand new teacher, another new teacher, and her first IEP meeting, spent a great deal of time with him to prepare and develop a whole plan and support him leading it through through that first meeting. And really cool on top of that was that assistant principal that shared this success story with me, and then I had a chance to visit with the teacher, also provided her with concrete feedback following the IEP meeting. And mind you, principals and assistant principals have been in IEP meetings constantly because we had to do them for all of our students. And when I said 500 plus, I wasn't exaggerating over the last 3 weeks. And he took the time to give her feedback that is, I won't read it all, but great job welcoming everyone. Your pacing was great. Your energy is always contagious. Clearly you were prepared. Clearly student was prepared and energized. The schedule, the visual schedule made it super easy to follow. So you can see there's a lot of energy there and a lot of celebration. I was really fortunate, thinking about the connections and learning that are happening. I was really fortunate to get to be at NEC for their open house. And not only were the staff really thrilled to see each other, it's kind of like that feeling I think Sandy was describing earlier, that getting into a building and seeing and being in person. But at NEC, the whole parking lot was set up with stations, and staff were thrilled to see each other, and students and their families were thrilled to come in and have that opportunity to get started. And that happened throughout our district, throughout the course of the first week of school or so, or the previous week to that first week. One principal, upon towards the conclusion of a meeting for this parent's particular student, reported to me that there was just so much gratitude and joy on the part of the parent about the ability for their child to get to come back to school in the hybrid model here next week. And the parent said, school is such a physical place for my son. It's a physical place that getting him to his computer to connect for school just has been a challenge. And she was just thrilled. One more fun story. I know I don't want to go on, and I could, because I have many, many positive examples, but imagine what connected learning looks like in a preschool classroom for kiddos with deaf, hard of hearing issues. So in this classroom, we see a teacher working with 4 children. They're connected through their Chromebooks. On the first day, all 4 were present and participating in the video activity. There was also a speech and language clinician present. So we have kind of 2 adults and 4 children. Everyone's so excited. They're excited to be back in school. And at one point, you have a great view of the ceiling of one of the children's house. At another point, a cat comes in to visit. At another point, one student's just kind of paralyzed. There's so much, excitement, and then another student who just had a lot to say, and it was just fun. I think it was just heartwarming to see that. Our care and treatment staff have been back in person since the 14th in a number of our sites there, and that's just been going great. Lots of engagement. Students just thrilled to have teachers back in person. One excited young man was just said, "I'm just so glad Josh is back as right here as my teacher." So lots of connections, and I think we see that we need to work hard and do our best to have our kids in person and connecting, however that is, whether it's in a park or back at school one-on-one, or coming back in our hybrid model. But our students need to have those very real connections. One observation is that a lot of our teachers are using, even in their in-person instruction, care and treatment, are embedding technology and really integrating technology into their instruction. A nice byproduct of the months we've spent in a more connected learning or distance learning model. So lots of engagement, lots of laughter, lots of joy. And of course, it's change. And with change, which we know is the only constant in life, comes a lot of challenges. And the reality of getting school started in the midst of a pandemic a global pandemic, and our human nature, where we don't have really a great deal of comfort with ambiguity. At least I'm one of those folks. I kind of like things laid out, and right now we just have to adapt as we go. And then, of course, the challenge of making sure we're communicating when folks are stressed. Ms. Allen mentioned the heuristic that Dr. Perry uses with us, and I've been thinking a lot throughout this time that sometimes I'm down in my brain stem looking for regulation, and I know collectively we're trying to. So with that comes these challenges that include a real anxiety and fear over what does this mean, particularly as we're approaching bringing more students back into our building through the hybrid model next week in person. What does this mean? I know for our itinerant staff before school started, I mean, they were out and about in your districts, providing services under many different models and having to learn new safety protocols for one building in one district, and then going over to provide services and support another group of students in another district on another day, and having to keep straight, what are the protocols? How do I do this? You know, and how do I continue to meet in team? So that challenge of kind of keeping track of new protocols, new routines, changing routines, because we establish a protocol and then recognize that there's a need to refine it already, and that makes it challenging. It puts a lot on our leaders, and many of them spoke to that, just the weight of supporting staff, supporting families, feeling a responsibility to do the very best by our students and their educational program and keep everyone safe. Balancing decisions around what are the essential duties of an employee as we're considering how can we accommodate this need. And being in meetings via Google Hangout for hours on end, right? Just that fatigue. So those are all the challenges that we face. And again, we just keep moving ahead, right? And rethinking and considering how do we try to stay the course in such a fluid situation with so many unknowns. And with that, we're spending a lot of time also talking about how we take care of ourselves in order to meet that challenge. We have great communication in our district, thanks to Rachel Hicks and her team. Yet sometimes we hear, well, we're communicating too much. We're not communicating enough. And we recognize that sometimes we're not ready to hear certain things, or we need to rethink and go back. And she has been, certainly, I'll just call you out, Rachel, you've been so gracious in last minute changes, last minute projects, and helping us mitigate the communication challenge that's bound to present itself in this situation. So what's coming up next? Well, next week, step one, we're welcoming students back into our school sites and at the Hennepin Technical College for our programs there. We're continuing and looking forward to having students and staff in a small number, but in our buildings to really continue to review and evaluate our protocols and our processes. And of course, we continue to wholeheartedly provide the support to our students and our families and staff as we move forward through this journey. I'm happy to take some questions. this time. I'm going to stop presenting.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Are there any questions or comments? Sandy?
Just one comment, and I think Elizabeth alluded to it. Today was the day that we had set that we would make a decision about step 3. And as we looked at the rates today, the transmission rates, we were pleased to see they were either stable or in some cases continuing to decrease. And so we did make a decision to go forward with step 3. And by that time, we will have a hybrid model across the district. And I think we'll see how it goes, but we're excited to try it and excited to have students coming back is clearly something that resonates with many, many staff. And I had that experience today at Ann Bremer with school buses and kids and staff. Even if you couldn't quite recognize everybody with the mask on, there was a lot of camaraderie happening where I was. So.
Thank you, Sandy. Andrea, go ahead, please.
I just have a quick comment. I just wanted to call out the teachers. I think I'm so grateful to hear all of the positive reports, but I also worry about the teachers because I know they're doing so many things they've never had to do before, and there are so many unknowns, and it's stressful, and there's a lot of extra work. So I just wanted to make sure to thank all the 287 teachers and staff.
Thank you, Andrea. That's well said. Really appreciate our staff, our teachers, the additional custodial time needed to keep up with the needs of keeping our spaces safe. And do want to take this opportunity to remind our teachers, our staff, to remember self-care, take care of yourselves, because this is a demanding time. Thank you, Andrea. Additional questions or comments?
I just wanted to ditto too. Great work by the staff, lots of great work. And I'm wondering, for self-care, what are you doing to take care of yourselves? Is it any specific activities you have in place, or they're just doing it individually?
And I should probably defer over to Ben and Ms. Allen in terms of the more formal things that have been, not formal, but opportunities that are in place for our staff in general to access self-care. Would you like to speak to that, Tanya?
Yes, thank you, Member Ruthie Dallas, for asking that question. I would say one of the things that we've been doing, part of my role is working with social emotional learning coordinators as well as social workers and our mental health team. And so I've been in multiple conversations with all of those individuals. We've had time to really have them have the opportunity as well to just express kind of how they're feeling, things like that. We also, as you may know, have the district mobile response team, and those are clinical professionals as staff. So we've really worked to come alongside principals to do listening sessions. They've sometimes done other sessions just to allow people just kind of that space to just express how they're feeling in the moment, those challenges. We have engaged Sand Creek, our employee assistance program, to help support staff as well and remind them frequently about that opportunity. And one of the things that we are in the process of launching, it keeps getting delayed, but we're going to get it done, is what's called our Staff Vibes video series, which our social emotional learning coordinators will be working to record short videos related to a variety of topics to share with staff. So the first one I'm actually doing, and we just need to finish up the recording pieces, but the first one is going to be talking about gratitude. And so just talking about, even in the midst of this pandemic, in the midst of so many difficult things, what are we grateful for? Because gratefulness has been shown to help improve our mood and things like that. So part of the work that we'll be doing is coming up with creative ideas like that to just kind of help staff know we are here, we're listening, we're responding, we're meeting those needs. We also will be working on another set of different opportunities. We have a professional development day coming up October 2nd that is site-based. However, we'll be working with leaders so that if there are needs around that we'll be working to provide some training and some different opportunities to start talking about that. Because obviously one of the key parts of our training to start the year was just on compassion fatigue. And obviously going through this experience of a pandemic could lead to compassion fatigue or burnout, and so those are the things that we are really working to make sure we're in tune and attuned to our staff needs, and then using a variety of resources internally to address them, as well as directing them to those external resources. So I feel like we're really trying to bridge the gap in a variety of ways to be responsive.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so thank you for that question.
Thank you for all the work.
Thank you. Crystal Brecky, your question or comment?
Yeah, this is more of a technical question, most likely, and it can be answered in follow-up or in a future board meeting. But at our Richfield board meeting on Monday, we got a helpful overview of just the way in which the district is responding to suspected cases of COVID in terms of the decision-making process, the communication process, and also what we're doing to publicly communicate any cases just at a building level as they become known. And so I would love to have a similar window into how 287 is approaching that.
Thank you, Crystal. I think Sandy will provide some immediate input.
Well, your timing is perfect in that we had our first confirmed case. And so we actually just today were working through all those communication pieces. And I think we have a plan now. We'll probably share it at a later time exactly when it's all neatly laid out. But probably like many districts, we're trying to follow some of the guidelines that we've received from MDE, MDH. We're trying to both abide by data privacy kinds of guidelines and still be transparent so that staff and families and students know when there is a transmission and what some of the subsequent steps that we're taking. Chad, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think that about sums it up. We still have some decisions to make, and I know we're going to be discussing it in the near future. Obviously, we just received, and every district continues to receive kind of some fluid or ever-changing guidance, which makes this a little bit challenging. But I think what Sandy just shared is probably where we're at.
And maybe I would just add, because this is a good example with Chad's comment about constantly changing everything, really. This is a really humbling time for all of us as leaders, as teachers, as EAs. We're knowing we need to keep moving forward, but there is a lot of changing, a lot of adaptation that we need to make. That in itself is stressful. So then we're trying to provide that support for staff well-being. But we expect that to continue and probably increase. We know there's going to be transmissions. We know there's going to be positive cases. And MDH and MDE have trained us well in that to be ready for it. And so this first transmission for us is a good way for us to practice what we've learned. Good question.
Thank you all. Any additional questions or comments? All right, thank you, everyone. Really applaud you on the work. We just appreciate the flexibility, the innovation, and we're serving students. So thank you very much. There is no instructional report this evening, so we'll move on to item 8, which is, oh, excuse me.
6.5.
Ah, how did I do this twice? Okay, thank you. It's a good thing you're here. We do have one more item under the superintendent's report, and that is our federal grant award. Ben McGrath, welcome.
Good evening, and thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Lewandowski. I will be relatively brief here, but we have some pretty exciting news on a federal grant that we're part of. A few months ago, we were approached by the Minnesota Department of Education, and they asked us to be one of 3 districts across the state to partner with them on submitting a federal grant. It's the Project AWARE grant, and AWARE stands for Advancing Wellness and Resiliency in Education. The really great part about this grant is a couple things. One is that it is $425,000 per year for 5 years. So the total grant award is a little over $2.1 million. The other part that's really exciting about this grant is it aligns perfectly with the work that we're already doing. Our strategic priority on trauma and healing-centered practices, our work on mental health, our work on SEL, that some of what you heard from Tanya earlier. It aligns with the work that we're already doing. And so it was really great news. Just had our first meeting with the Minnesota Department of Education earlier today and had confirmation of the grant award, and we're ready to get going. So we'll be putting some plans together over the next couple of weeks and be sure to come back and provide an update once we have more information.
Thank you, Ben. And just congratulations to the district. This is great news for everyone. And it's exciting, the amount and the fact that this is sustaining over 5 years. So thanks for sharing the news. Any questions or comments about the grant? I see Andrea Keene has a question. Andrea, go ahead, please.
Thanks. Congratulations. That is really exciting. Just thinking ahead to the legislative session and the probable deficit, I know that 287 is really concerned about the funding that will be required to continue the TTM model at North Education Center. And I'm wondering, is there any chance that this grant money could help with that program? Or do we know yet?
I don't have a specific answer for you. We do know that really the nuts and bolts of the grant is dedicated towards staffing and professional development. Those are the two big ideas. And there's some other details and strategies, evidence-based practices that we're going to be working with MDE on. Mental health first aid, for example, the prepare model for crisis response, and a couple other things. So whether or not we can use it specifically for TTM, I'm not sure yet at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just add on to your answer, Ben, in that we are in some conversations with Hennepin County. Justice Ann McKeague has brought us together to try to creatively come up with a partnership of some kind. And I don't know exactly where it will land, but I'm hoping it will help ultimately in adding some resources to do navigating through county systems. One of the things we get challenged by is Hennepin County is a big entity. And when you're in a crisis, you don't have a lot of time to figure things out. So trying to get through those various steps has been a challenge to us, and we're happy that Hennepin County is in discussions with us. We're also talking a bit about TTM in those conversations as well. They're not finished yet, but it is a great opportunity to try to work together in new and different ways.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments? All right, next up is Section 8, the Business Services and Labor Relations Report. We'll begin with 8.1.1, a summary of summer projects. May Hawkins, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I am going to try and share here and see if that works. So let me know. Can you see the presentation? Excellent.
Yes, good.
Thanks. Because once like everybody says, once you start presenting, you can't see anybody anymore. So you got to speak for me know. So this is the annual facilities report to the school board. Once again, our facility staff have been very busy this year, and what I'm going to share with you is only the highlights of the projects that were completed. In addition to what I'm going to share, I want to let you know that Kurt Vedenberg, our manager, Brian Abergast, and Troy Thompson, our assistant managers, in collaboration with our health and safety manager, Jake, have also been busy completing the preparations to ensure that our schools are clean, safe, and ready for students to return next week. So this report's broken out by location, and we're going to start at South Education Center. So on this first slide, we needed to do some work at South Education Center due to projected increases in enrollment. So these are the before pictures. These are two spaces that were larger spaces. And what we needed to do is remodel these and make these 2 classrooms into 4 classrooms. And so I'm going to click again here. And so now you can see we moved all the equipment in the kitchens. We moved things around. We've added this wall here to divide this space so that now we have more learning spaces for students at that school. So also at South Education Center, we're doing a remodel of their front entry, and that's in process right now, and that's to improve safety and security at this site. So if you've ever been there, this picture on the right side shows you that it's wide open, right? So there's a desk in this middle area, and it's wide open on either side of that desk. And so after the remodel, there'll be 3 layers of doors prior to accessing the school hallway. So if we go to the upper right, you can see the construction in progress, and you can see that there's framing for windows, there's framing, there's panels in front of the counter. And then if you go to the bottom, you can see the framework that's just starting in place for the doors that will go into the hallway. So this is the back of that desk. And these frames here will hold doors that will go into the hallway. And then in the next slide, we're still at South Education Center. When we closed the Early Learning Center there, we decided to use that space for the middle school programs. But of course, the space wasn't designed for middle school students. It was designed for infants and toddlers. So over the summer, we had to do quite a bit of remodeling in here. So we removed this kitchenette. Oops, now I see I did it. I knew I was going to click. We removed the kitchenette, and we did some remodeling of the spaces. We also had to remodel the restrooms. So that's the before, and then this is the after. So those spaces are now breakout spaces and appropriate spaces for middle school students. In the next slide, we're still at West Education Center, and the district, you might remember, was awarded a Hennepin County Youth Sports Grant. Then that was to design and build a new multi-purpose sports court at West Education Center, which has had many hiccups, but hey, we have a court. So the new court can be used for basketball, pickleball, volleyball, badminton. It has lots of different lines on it. It has different accessories you can put in for different sports. And so the line on the picture on the left shows it in progress. This is a concrete thing, pouring the concrete. And then on the right, you can see the finished court. And if you look really carefully, you can even see the painted lines for the court. So then also at West Education Center, we finished off the hallways with the MDF board on the bottom. And then finally, at West Education Center, we remodeled their front entry as well. So it was remodeled to add this security check-in window. So the window and the ledge under the window were not there before. That was a wall. And then we converted this small room behind here into the security office. And then where the open security was, on the other side, on the lower right, we remodeled that space to create a conference room. So prior to this, any visitors or whatever that needed to come to a conference room would have to go halfway through the building to get to a conference room. So this puts the conference room right by the front door. And then in addition to that, WEC also had an HVAC system switch over. So the upper right shows you from inside the security office out to the door. Okay, so now we're going to head up the road to NEC. And so at NEC, the upper picture is the before and the lower picture is the after. So before we had railings and a very open balcony here on the second floor. And similar to what we did at SEC, we've enclosed that so to prevent any students from scaling over the railing and to prevent any issues like that. So. And then also at NEC, we put in new flooring in the breakout spaces. So some of these had carpet tiles, they're breakout rooms, and some of them didn't have any carpet tiles left on them because the students, when they were in there, peeled them all up. So instead, we put in continuous vinyl flooring, as you can see on the right. So now we're going to head up to Ann Bremmer. So in the last phase of the construction at Ann Bremmer, hooray, is done. But we did the first pictures I have here are of the kitchen. So to meet code and also to improve the workflow of the kitchen was redone this year. So the old hood, which was from 1961, was painted enamel over metal. And as you can imagine, after time, the paint started not to adhere to the enamel anymore, and you can't have such things over your cooking surfaces. So the picture on top is where the old equipment was. It was in the middle of the room where the pipes are there that you can see sticking out, right? The picture below on the left is the new kitchen with, whoops, I did it again. The new kitchen with the new hood and all the equipment underneath of that hood, right? And it's all in a row and it's not out in the middle of the space. And then the picture over on the right shows you what it looks like on the ceiling. So this is above the roof. So this is what the vent is above the roof. I just thought that was kind of cool because that's not a view you usually get. So also at Ann Bremmer, in 21 classrooms, we replaced the Venmar units. So now if you look at the before picture, the Venmar unit is that white big box thing in the middle, right? And we replaced the cabinets on either side of the Venmar unit. The picture in the middle shows you like there's no unit, there's no cabinets, and you can see the ceiling tiles were all taken out. That is because when we put in the new Venmar units and the new cabinets, the new Venmar units are actually ducted into the ceiling so that the air is distributed from the ceiling, not just out of the unit. We also replaced the glass in the front doors. So any lower glass was replaced in the front doors. So there's a before picture and an after picture here. The after picture is of the inside doors. The outside doors are still in process. They wanted to remove the outside doors, take them away and bring them back later. And of course we said, well, we can't have a building without outside doors, without being able to lock it for a week. So they're coming up with a plan B to put the panels in place. And so that is still happening. And then lastly at Ann Bremmer, padding was added to breakout spaces in 9 classrooms. So when we originally designed the new addition, the request was to have 1 breakout room with padding and 1 breakout room without padding in each of those new addition classrooms. And after having been in the building for a year, the request was made to have all of the breakout spaces have padding. So we added those. In addition, we addressed some COVID-19 needs with the nurse's office. So by flipping the nurse's office and the staff workroom around so that the space, so this is a brand new space here in the left middle for patients is now a space that was an office space before, and it's immediately behind the nurse's office. And then other spaces in the bottom left were converted into offices so that we didn't have an office shortage space. And then, so future planned, so the biggest thing coming up on the horizon is the NEC lighting project that the board just approved. And then we'll also have an engineering study at SEC to review options for replacing the failing well system for cooling that building. And then, does the board have any questions?
Thank you, May. Any questions or comments? Sam Sant, go ahead.
Regarding the HVAC systems and the future plans for the South Education Center, is the purification quality up to the standards now with COVID-19 or anything like that?
No, it's just the cooling system that the engineering study is.
What about the I think it was the West Education Center? That the HVAC system was updated, anything with that, with the purification?
That was to convert the software that runs the HVAC system to the same software that all the other buildings are on. So, but that took a substantial amount of time.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Thank you, May. And we'll just keep you on board here for 8.2, our financial report on the grants overview.
Flipping pages here, sorry.
Yes.
This is just a summary to let the board know that the district is trying to take advantage of any funding sources that we can related to our COVID-19 additional expenditures. So we have submitted several applications to FEMA to cover our PPE and our sanitization equipment and things like that. At this point in time, we have 3 separate applications in, and we have not heard back on any of them. We've had some questions, some further inquiries, but we haven't heard that we've been awarded any of them at this point. So, and as it shows in there, you know, we're at like a little over $170,000 that we have submitted to FEMA. So, and then the second pot is all from the CARES Act, right? And it's coming just like it's coming to your home districts in 3 different pots or 4 different pots of money that you have to apply for. So everybody's just is busy just trying to manage all these grants on top of trying to do everything else. So just to let you know that our governor emergency education relief grant, we submitted that. That's been all approved. We are waiting for MDE to have their system up so that we can request those funds. So that was all spent for the Chromebooks that we put in the hands of students last spring. Then we've also applied for about almost half of our ESSER grants for FY20, again, to cover Chromebooks and hotspots, translation services, expenses that we had between March and June last spring, because the last pot, the coronavirus relief funds, doesn't start until July 1, right? So at this point, everything that we're doing that is outside of what we had budgeted, what we budgeted for, will go into the coronavirus relief fund grant to offset our costs from July 1 to December 30th. Are there any questions?
Thank you, May. Any questions or comments? All right, thank you so much. So at this time, we'll move on to 8.3 on the agenda, the Human Resources Report. And the board will move into closed session. Michelle Axel, our Director of Human Resources, will present an update on the 284 negotiations. The school board may hold a closed meeting to consider a strategy for labor negotiations according to Minnesota Statute 13D.03. Is there a motion to move into closed session?
So moved.
Moved by Sam Sant. Is there a second?
Second, Andrea Keene.
Seconded by Andrea Keene. Thank you. I invite board members to unmute their microphones in preparation for the roll call vote. Crystal, would you please call the roll?
Adams.
Aye.
Brackey is an aye. Casey. Aye. Keene.
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes.
Douglas.
Yes.
Marty.
Yes.
Neville.
Yes.
Sant.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries. And at this point in time, the board will move into closed session. I'm going to ask that we just pause for a couple of minutes while we ensure that we're in closed session, at least on the boardroom end. So we'll take just a 2-minute break. I'm going to take a break. Yeah. Is that okay? So we'll take a couple minutes break. 9, board business. Board reports, there is no chair report this evening. AMSD, I know that 287 is fortunate to have 3 of our board members who regularly represent us in their home districts at AMSD. We have Ruthie Dallas, Ann Casey, and Andrea Keene. So I want to acknowledge gratitude to all 3 of you. I believe this evening Andrea is going to provide an AMSD update. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Scott Kronquist actually came to the Wayzata Legislative Action Committee meeting this Wednesday, so I have kind of an updated report from him. He talked about how all 201 legislators will be on the ballot in November. Therefore, this is an excellent time to connect with them. It's the very best time to let both incumbents and candidates know about our priorities because they are often very open to listening during campaign season. So take advantage. The AMSD election guide can be found on their website. It has great information about funding and policy matters, as well as a list of questions to ask the candidates. We still have no bonding bill passed and no tax bill passed. There is a chance that these items may be taken up again during the October special session that will be required to happen for continuation of the peacetime emergency. The state budget outlook is grim and also uncertain. August numbers suggest a $4.7 billion deficit, but this number is ever changing. The best plan seems to be to wait for the official November forecast. This number will then be used as a starting point for budget planning in the 2021 session for the next 2-year cycle, the 2022-23 cycle. I always feel like I need to have a graph to describe that, but the next biennium. Because of the likely significant deficit, we're starting to hear advocacy for no cuts to education, as well as people thinking about the education budget shifts that were used by the Pawlenty administration to balance the budget. It took the state 3 years to pay back the shifted money, but a shift is better than a permanent cut, especially when interest rates are so low for districts who may need to borrow if there is a shift. Justice Alan Page and Neil Kashkari, the president of the Federal Reserve in Minneapolis, are putting a lot of work into bringing the education constitutional amendment back to the table for the upcoming session, so stay tuned. The Education Funding Work Group continues to meet and will have their comprehensive report and final recommendations completed on October 1st. The Minnesota House of Representatives has created a select committee on racial justice. The committee has 13 bipartisan members from all around the state. The committee was formed to explore why Minnesota has some of the worst racial disparities in education, health, housing, and public safety. The committee will meet the next 4 Tuesdays at 1 o'clock. Meetings are live streamed. The first meeting happened this past Tuesday. It was really interesting. And finally, the 2021 legislative session begins on Tuesday, January 5th. That's it.
Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate it. Are there any questions or comments about the AMSD update? All right, they're interesting sessions. It's just a lot to follow, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
One more quick comment, if I may.
Sure.
Steve, you guys have a really great candidate forum on Saturday, basically all day Saturday, right? 9 to 6:30. Am
That's
I right?
correct. Yeah. I'm blocking out the whole day.
Oh my gosh. We can zoom in, right? Or zoom in when it's our
Zoom in whenever you feel like it. Sure. Well, and it's kind of interesting. There was an article in the Star Tribune yesterday about all these QAnon candidates around the state. There are 6 of them. 3 of them are in our school district. So, and probably overlap into some of yours too. So, yeah, it should be an interesting candidate forum. So, yeah, we've got 24 candidates, 12 incumbents, 12 challengers that will be attending our candidate forum. So it's got to be an all-day affair, unfortunately. So.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Bill Hopkins.
Yeah, absolutely. So any other items that anyone would like to share from their home districts or in reference to 287 before we close for the evening?
Chair Neville,
Yes.
I would just like to ask my fellow board members, is anyone experiencing a COVID outbreak or infection in their school districts at this point?
Thank you. I can speak for Donna as a no, I mean, nothing significant.
Good.
So I would think, I guess the question is, what's your definition of an outbreak?
One case.
Oh, yes.
Of a student or a staff, anybody.
Yeah, we haven't had any students because they're not in, it's complicated, I guess, right? We haven't had any cases due to classroom experiences because our kids aren't in classrooms yet.
Yeah.
We have had kids who have tested positive for COVID due to engagements outside of the school district, like a birthday party or something along those lines. And they play sports.
Yeah.
We've also had staff, similar circumstances. They contracted it due to outside circumstances.
Okay.
But there doesn't seem to be any link between any student or staff related to any school-based functions at this point in our district.
That's reassuring. All right.
But we also have a really large district, so
right.
I expect that to increase.
Well, we started our K through 6 last week, so we're in our second week now, and I'm just walking on pins and needles, hoping that we don't have COVID infection as a result of school activities. So
yes,
I'm especially concerned about staff. So
it's a good question. Thank you, and I think a concern that all of us are sharing. It's our goal to keep everyone safe. Any other topics? With that, is there a motion to adjourn for the evening?
So moved.
Moved by Steve Adams. Is there a second?
Second, Heidi Marty.
Seconded by Heidi Marty. Thank you. Crystal, would you please call the roll?
Adams.
Aye.
Brackey is an aye. Casey. I can see you saying aye, but I can't hear you. I'll come back to you. Keen.
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes.
Douglas.
Yes.
Marty.
Yes.
Neville.
Aye.
Sant.
Yes.
I'm slow. Something's happening. Aye.
And Neville is a yes.
And just
Aye.
saying yes too. We got her. We're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
You are unanimous, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Be well, everyone. Have a good day.
Our first hybrid meeting is in the book.
We're in the books. We can do this hybrid. We can do it virtual. We can try.
Actually, I kind of like the ease of being able to watch that screen. It was